Why has the media been speaking in harsh tones about Cricket South Africa's social justice and nation-building hearings? We probe the difference between what is of public interest and what the public finds interesting. And you can look forward to our standard features, video of the week, and the game changer. Hello and welcome to Media and Society on the SABC News Channel, independent and impartial. This is where we give you the platform to probe how news is covered and angles are determined. My name is Rems Mabote, and I'm your host, and I'm vaccinated. This is not a complete show without your say. Connect with us on our social media platforms or channels and share your views and concerns about how the media works and what we feed you. Hashtag SABC Media and Society, and call us on 011-714-7841 or 7842. As our cricket team is battling it out with Ireland, the spectre of racism continues to hover over Cricket SA, the coaching staff, and some of the players. But it would appear the media isn't really interested in the story. As if things have not been bad enough for cricket, former Proteas spinner Paul Adams dropped yet another bombshell when he told the SJN hearings this week about 3 incidents of alleged racism he experienced in the SA cricket team. The man fondly known as Khoga in his day told the commission that his teammates called him the brownish. He singled out former wicketkeeper and current coach Mark Boucher in this misdemeanor. Whether true or false, you would think this kind of story would be painted all over the front pages of newspapers and bleed through our screens. But no, it is mentioned in harsh tones, at best, or in passing, at worst. Why is the media so silent on this matter? I'm joined by award-winning sportscaster Robert Marawa of Metro FM and Radio 2000, Marawa Sports Worldwide, as well as former editor, newspaper editor and author and vlogger Hassan Abada to make sense of this. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining me. Let me start with you, Hassan. You have been very vocal on this matter on social media. You went very, very unhappy about what you saw. But the question is, this has been happening. The hearings have been going on and on and on and on. Is your sense that this is not such an important story for the media?
I do get that sense, Rams, because we've heard about the Mackay and Teeny story. But this one cut a little bit more deep for me on a personal level because I happen to be friends with Paul Adams as well. And I think when it's not your top story of your news bulletin because the current coach is actually accused of making such racist allegations, then it's a serious, serious problem, I think it was disappointing that morning after having read the story online, not to hear the news bulletins, certainly not in Cape Town. So we had news anchors, sports news anchors rattling off the result against Ireland and saying absolutely nothing about these allegations about a coach who is currently the mentor of some of the finest black players in the world at the moment.
Question would be though, wouldn't you say, as sports bulletins are concerned, maybe that's a different story? Won't they defend themselves and say the commission is the commission or the hearings are the hearings? When we do sports news, it's sports news and we leave it there?
Rams, that's a bit like saying, I hate that cliche that's overused, we mustn't mix politics and sport. Unfortunately, everything about sport in South Africa is about politics as well. When it comes down to team selections, who gets a chance to play, We heard from Lutz Bosman yesterday. We heard from Paul Adams, Makai Antini, Roger Telemarcus. I think rugby's been through this process as well. You know, we had Kamp Staldraat. You can't be a South African sports person and say, honestly, we can't mix politics and sport. So it shouldn't even have been reserved for the sports bulletins. It should have been leading the news agenda of the day. That's my view of it. It's as big a story as the Hansie Cronje scandal. And in my personal view, I think Cricket South Africa has a lot to answer for. They should have suspended the coach, brought him back home the way the England and Wales Cricket Board suspended 3 players recently, or 2 players recently, for similar racist comments on social media that they made 8 years ago. You know,
not to make it, Hassan, sorry to interrupt you, not to make it a cricketing story, because here we're talking about it from a media coverage point of view, and I understand what you think should have happened from a cricketing point of view. From a media point of view, though, in your view, before I move on to Robert, why do you think your colleagues, my colleagues, are not as enthusiastic about this story as they would be about the Zondo Commission, for instance?
Good morning,
No,
Rams.
Bob, I'll come back to you. I want Hassan to finish this part first. I'm going to come back to you just now. Yeah.
Sorry, Bob, you can see my Pirates bucket hat in the background there, so that's Rams's bias there. But just to be honest with you, the way commentators in particular in South Africa frame black players or players of color, or either they are called brown or black players, it makes it very, very difficult, because we lack diversity, we lack representation in the media. And we can also look at how women are covered in the media as well. Women's sports presenters are in the minority. When I think Robert Marawa knows Julia Stewart very well. She was probably the best presenter at SuperSport's most recent Euro 2020 presentation. And to be honest with you, I think there is a blind spot in the media that this story doesn't mean as much because there are black players involved, and it's a guy from 20 years ago who kicked down doors for other black players to follow through in the Protea setup. But his name's probably not big enough. I don't know what it is. For me, it was absolutely a big story, and which is why I was so passionate about it when I first saw it, you know?
Bob, the flip side is that even though I speak about the media having been silent on the matter, the truth is I listened a lot to your show, and you have had interviews, at least those I've heard, with Thamitso Lekile, with Tsotsobe, with I think you spoke to the former board member, Dr. Eugenia Kula Ameo. You've focused on this matter a lot. But I listen to a lot of more radio. I watch a lot more current affairs, and I'm not seeing other people covering it. Now, here's my question. Why is it that you would find this something of national importance, but our colleagues are not?
I work for a public broadcaster called the SABC, Rams. I work for a space that requires me to be responsible in terms of my reporting. And it also requires of me to fight the same fight that we fought when it came to the rugby. If you remember, when Minister of Sport, Fikile Mbalula, was in his position as the Minister of Sport, you know, things were not very rosy, because we had, amongst other people, a set of players, the late Kaunda Ndunja. We had this man here, Thando Manana. So maybe, Rams, this is what we have to wait for. You look at the title, Being a Black Springbok. It doesn't say being a Springbok. The fact that he includes in that book, Being a Black Springbok, means something. It says something about a lived experience of not just being a Springbok, but being a black Springbok. And that for me says a lot, because the media obviously was not interested in Thando Manana's story. So he had to write his own book. So what do we have to do? Do we have to wait for a Paul Adams? Do we have to wait for Ethim Balati's story? Who do we have to wait for next to read a story? And the fact is, when you write a book, It's not everybody that likes to read. So it's not a story that is available to the entire country. So as a public broadcaster, my responsibility is to showcase that is in the public interest. And when we fought the fight with the so-called room dividers, including Tando, Lawrence Sipaka, it was about inclusivity. It was about the issue of transformation, and we were not able to be there. Yes, Mbalula did not like it at the time. Yes, whatever happened with him happened with us as well, and we were on the brink of being chucked out of the SABC for having and holding those very strong views. But thankfully, we were defended in terms of our role. Why? Because South Africa needed to see a transformed rugby team. And guess what? Went to Japan, we won the most transformed rugby team we have ever seen in our lives. Went in there and actually scored tries. And for the first time in a Rugby World Cup, tries were scored. And who scored them? Actually, black rugby players. Not because they were given a quota inclusion. They were given an opportunity that should have been given to many black players even before. You know, you look at a John Ginnock with the same story. They never covered the 4 tries that he scored against Australia at Ellis Park. So what I'm saying in terms of the cricket and what we're hearing at the SJN is that those stories, Rams, have been bubbling under for a very long time. It is just not something that is appetizing. Remember, the same journalists that occupy these newsrooms happen to be white journalists who happen to go on these tours, who happen to be invited into the private suite at the presidential suites or whatever corporate suites at the cricket grounds post the game to have drinks with these cricket SA authoritarians that are there. None of the black journals get given or get offered that opportunity, but they do. So you are treating them even at the medium that we are all in here with Hassan and yourself, is that now there's a select group unknowingly to the black journalists who are rushing back to the newsroom to go and print and go against the deadline. It's never going to work, and that is why you don't see it as a headline story. Instead, Mark Boucher will tell you that he'll deal with the story when he comes back. So he's choosing when to deal with the story.
When I posted about this conversation yesterday on Twitter, a journalist said to me, but what are you talking about? Because the very fact that you're mentioning this is because it was mentioned in the media. And my response to them, and I'm not going to mention them by name because that's not the point. The point is that I said to them, well, if you think that I'm wrong, please join us in the panel tomorrow and call my bluff. Because my argument was the coverage, the mere mention is not the same as focus. We have cameras rolling live at the Zondo Commission every single day. Why is it's not happening here? And by the way, I do hear you about white journalists covering these sporting codes. But you know what? At my last search, most of editors in this country actually happen to be black. You would think they would want this story to also trend, first because it's a story, but secondly because they're black. They should be offended by what is happening.
But who's controlling that again, Rams? I don't want to single out individuals, but also just know that from a consistency point of view, Buti said, so from Times Live, has been very consistent. Mr. Malepa has been on the story from the beginning. Even with the previous chair of the interim committee, he got into a verbal with him, and we all know how that ended. So at the end of the day, we also have to realize that yes, they might be occupied by black journalists or black editors. So was Chris Nenzani, a black man who was heading up cricket and who accepted that mistakes were made, who accepted that wrong people were made and appointed to be the Proteas captain or the Proteas coach, sorry. So all I'm saying is that black does not mean understanding the nuances. We have a black minister of sport right now. Can you say to the nation that you can put him on the same pedestal as a Steve Tshwete and Nqonde Balfour in terms of just involvement in sport, just in terms of knowing the intricacies and nuances in sport? Can you say the same thing? No. And that is why sport continues to be in the back burner, not only of the front pages or the talkability within TV. It just continues to lose its spectacle. People want to shout and scream now about the outfits of the Olympians or the makeup of the race of the Olympians. But we've been fighting about how sport has not become the center topic of discussion. And it's too late when you get to the Olympics. You'll get the same picture even at the next Olympics. And the same thing is happening in cricket. It's a shame that it does not get the coverage it deserves.
Hassan, we know that billions of rand have reportedly been lost because of state capture. Reportedly, I say, we shall wait for the report. Could somebody argue that when you look at the Zondo Commission, it is of national interest, and maybe people say this is not as big as that. It's some individuals who have been insulted, excluded, made to feel uncomfortable in the team, or is that comparison really lost?
I think that comparison doesn't make any sense because we're human beings, and we things like those are not mutually exclusive of each other. You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Does that mean we lose our humanity and only focus on a pandemic? The answer is no. You know, I mean, let's talk about why wasn't a bigger deal made of the fact that when the Proteas were top of the ICC rankings, they had 7 players of color in the team. Let's talk about last night's test match against the British and Irish Lions. And what I know about rugby is very, very dangerous. But I could tell that at halftime, the front row, an all-black front row, was bossing the game for 40 minutes in the first half. They were taken off at halftime. And I think that Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus need to take responsibility for that loss last night, because their bomb squad was so effective in the 2019 World Cup wasn't the answer, because you could see the momentum shifted, and probably nobody's really gonna go out of their way to praise those 3 black players, which 20 years ago would have been unheard of, to see a front row exclusively made up of black players. So I do think it's something that we shouldn't be sweeping under the carpet. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to be a black Proteas player and being so ambiguous about taking the knee. In South Africa, we should be taking the lead in taking the knee because of our divided past. And it's a shame to see the West Indies doing it and our players not knowing whether to stand, raise their fists to take the knee. It's embarrassing. And it shows the type of leadership at CSA.
Let me interrupt you here. You know, we call this show Media and Society, so we got to get society participating. Wachenstrom is calling us from Cape Town. Good morning, Wachenstrom.
Concern is just regarding the sports in South Africa.
Yes.
It's like for me growing up also in the apartheid years. And therefore, we always repeat and saying the past, the past, the past. Why are we not move on, get our sports in order? Look at the Bafana team. 80% people black. I mean, is that right? It's not right. We're talking about a sport which the government want to come in. So wrong. We have a beautiful, beautiful Springbok side. We have a beautiful cricket side. But now, the thing is, look at our soccer. And no one is looking at it. So wrong.
Wachenstrom, thank you very much, mate. We'll come back and get our guest to respond to you, even though I have to say, I think that you are diverting and wagging the dog, as they say. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we continue our media coverage on Cricket SA. Please be part of this conversation. Call us on 714-6841. Welcome back to Media and Society. We continue our coverage on Cricket SA, about how the media is covering it. Be part of the show by calling us on 011-714-6841 or 6842, and at SABC_MNS, #SABC Media and Society. My guests are award-winning sportscaster Robert Marawa of Metro FM and Radio 2000, as well as former Argus editor, author, and vlogger Hassan Abada. Bob the previous caller says you should stop worrying about cricket when your football looks 80% black and cannot even perform.
Rams, the previous caller needs to look at who lifted the trophy in 1996 for the Africa Cup of Nations. It was a white man named Neil Tovey.
Yeah.
He's got to look at so many other issues. But the thing is, when people like that want to bring in an argument when it comes to race, are people that are defeatist, people that are short-minded, people that don't actually understand. They don't even understand that the Springboks should not be the Springboks. They should not even be having that name. But an understanding was reached in terms of retaining that name. That is why the cricketers are called the Proteas, but they should have also been wearing the Springbok, but they don't. A political understanding is what it takes. So why is it so difficult for people to understand that a contract of a director of cricket right now is in dispute? And the fact that it is in dispute, and a lot of the people that have been going in front of the SJN make that point, that it is a contract that is in dispute and it shouldn't be standing right now. But Hassan mentioned about us not being able to take the knee. But who were the people that were against taking the knee? Are the very same people that are implicated in these hearings. The same people that have shown racist tendencies are not going to be able to tell a new breed of cricketers that it is wrong to be racist. So they will keep them away from anything that has to do with their move forward. So the previous caller needs to start understanding the journey of South African sport. They need to start understanding what it meant for the late Steve Twitter to go to the Indian tour for the very, very first time. And he mentioned the words that he never cried at Robben Island, but now he is crying. They've got to understand that. And when people look at, no, you should move on, why is it that black people have to always be apologetic? Why is it that white South Africans, white sports people don't want to take accountability of things that have gone wrong? When people say move on, apartheid, whatever, yes, apartheid, we can't find those people in their graves. But the people in question right now are people that are living, that are a phone call away, that accountability should be happening, that they should be addressing the South African public based on these allegations. And just based on anything, they don't have to be alleged to have done something, but no, the black person, they must put forward the commissions, they must be apologetic, they must be sorry for being black, they must be sorry for being gifted and excelling in sports. Come on.
Okay, let's take another call. Elias from Johannesburg, good morning. Hello, Elias, I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you, sir. You know, what we are discussing it's what affects us on daily basis. And it's the truth that if something bad is from a white person to a black person, it's treated with a very soft laugh. And if it is something which is bad from a white to a black person, it will be on the news the same day. It's like saying the news are those when a dog bites a man is not news, but when a man bites a dog, it's news all over the world. I think we South African blacks must start to realize that we must start supporting each other. The very same editors we are talking about, there is somebody who's handling them behind closed doors and telling them, you must write this, don't write that, misinform this, misinform that. It's just that they don't come out and tell us that we are being handled the same way that a white man is having an upper hand over a black person.
Elias, so, I am going to call these editors soon, one day, and they're going to tell me who is handling them behind closed doors and telling them what to publish and what not to publish. But I need to take the next caller, Kulile in East London. Good morning.
Good morning, Domkulu. Kunjani?
Siphilile nkosi kunjani mhlekazi?
Hayi siyaphila nathi. Look, firstly, I want to send my words of appreciation about this topic, especially bringing in Ukudrob. Ukudrob is well of this, and I want to congratulate him in his career and his quest of ensuring that we bring these pertinent issues and such talks on our platform, especially the SABC, because the SABC is our only hope. So in this regard, when this thing is is ongoing. It's updated even by our own. Like Ulo said, in regards to our government, our sports department, what is it that they are actively doing in transforming these associations? Because you have this first caller talking about the football arena, but we need not to be deterred by such people who have such limited understanding. Let's look at these as the South African Cricket Association, South African Rugby Union, and also bring in SAFA. Let's show them what transformation, because
Khulile, I'm sorry I'm going to cut you there. I'm running out of time, but also because I want us to stick to the issue of how the media is covering this more than about what government is doing. But as we conclude, Hassan, as an editor, I don't have to tell you about the concept of Audi Alteram Patem. Some of our colleagues would argue that there is no point in publishing these stories until we hear the other side of the story. Mark Boucher himself has said, please let me come back from Ireland, then I can respond.
Yeah, I find that a little bit funny. It's like the cricket tours of 1921 where you used to travel by ship when you could be back home on the next flight. That's how serious this is. And that's my problem, really, that the media is not asking tough enough questions of CSA, Mark Boucher, Graham Smith, and everybody in charge at Cricket South Africa. And I'm pushing this issue because I do think there needs to be accountability. And what it does is it emboldens somebody like Mark Boucher to say, actually, those allegations aren't serious. Let me focus on this dead rubber against Ireland. We've already won the series. I'm sure there's capable assistant managers who can take over the match, but he needs to be held accountable. And part of the problem is that the sports journalists, like Roberts alluded to, are fans of Mark Boucher. They can't write a critical story about him.
Hassan, let me fake an excuse for Wagen.
Coach.
Hassan, let me fake an excuse for Wagen and say, what if the cry is that things are so bad? We've got the State Capture Commission, we've got the COVID, we've got lootings, we've got all sorts of things happening. Maybe at some point we need heroes. We need a South African cricket team that wins. We need the Springboks. And even when things are bad, we should maybe not focus on those and find some heroic stories. Could it be that's what people are crying out for?
I don't see any heroes at the moment. Springboks lost last night, and beating Ireland isn't exactly one of the biggest accolades in world cricket. But I think that caller also needs to bear in mind that Bafana, and we know that SAFA can be a big mess, but Bafana is reflective of the demographics of this country, and we mustn't lose sight of that the majority, the vast majority, if not 80%, of the population is Black African people, and when I look at Bafana, they look like South Africa. So I don't know why that caller is saying, but look at that. We've got this problem with whataboutism in South Africa. And I think because we have bigger issues, we need to be more alert to not dismissing the lived experiences of a Paul Adams, of a Tami Tsolikele, of a Lopsy, and those players who testified at the hearings,
Okay, one last question, Bob, very quickly in one line. Does all of this matter?
It matters. It matters today. It's going to matter tomorrow. It's going to matter in the future. The very same cricketers have never won a Cricket World Cup, despite the privilege, despite the exclusivity. They've never won a Cricket World Cup since readmission back into world sport. That says something. They need to transform. They need to transform without any holdback, without any clause, any phrase that says whatever it is that they make up. People have to come back for accountability. Do we have the most qualified coach? Is the director of cricket's contract in order? Those are the things we need to look at and focus. We will never win the Cricket World Cup unless we're properly transformed. Even if we have 8 or 9 or 10 black players in that team, it doesn't matter. It will be a South African team.
Robert Marawa, top sports broadcaster, the man they can gag, and Hassan Dabada, vlogger and author of Heck with a Grenade. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and have a great day.
Thank you, Rams.
Cheers, Rams. Thanks, man.
Political analyst and broadcaster and podcaster Eusebius Makaiza wrote this week on his page, a Facebook page, quote, "There is a difference well established in media between in the public interest and of interest to the public. Of course, these days we would correctly critique such frameworks and ask what publics are being referred to. Firstly, in those frameworks, and secondly, who decides where a story fits?" Makaiza was obviously taking a stab at the media for granting Duduzane Zuma, son of former President Jacob Zuma, interviews. He writes, I quote again, "Duduzane Zuma is not a politician. He's not a public servant. He's not a thought leader, commentator, or an analyst. He is not a researcher or an academic. He's not an elected official. He's not a protagonist with known or reasonably suspected views." Now, we can say all we like about this, but here's the question. Is this about interest into the public or of public interest? But there's another story to this, guys. The other story is, are we going to censor people because they are not public figures? Who else is to say who must make news? To take us further in this conversation, I'm joined by journalist and founder and host of the Inside Factor, Mudiba, as well as Themba Siputukele. He's journalist, communication strategies, media trainer, and founder of TS Media. We asked Eusebius to join us in this conversation, but he could not. Please, you join us in the conversation. Call us now on 011-714-6841, 6842, and tweet at SABC_MNS. I'd like you to tell me what you think is of public interest and what is interesting to the public. Good morning, mate. I can swear that there's a lot of people who, when they read what Eusebius wrote, they felt he's arguing for somebody's mouth to be shut.
Look, I agree with that. But you see, the problem with that is that media now is going to end up in a situation where people are now going to end up being censored because they're not public figures or because they don't subscribe to the mainstream media narratives and those of the establishment, you know, and things which are of public interest are issues which speak to issues of inequality, poverty, which contribute to the wider development of society. And those and issues which are of interest to the public are issues which merely speak to the curiosity of South Africans, but they might not generally speak to issues of the greater development of this country. Because you find issues where they are of public interest, but the public does not find them interesting. And you find issues which are of interest to the public, but do not contribute to the nature and to contribute to a better society. Now, if you look at the black community itself, the mostly circulated paper in the black community is the Daily Sun. Does the Daily Sun speak to the issues of the public, which are of public interest, or does it speak to issues of public interest? This is a paper that gives you stories about women being impregnated by baboons. This is a paper that gives you stories about baboons driving cars. Are those stories which are of public interest? No, they are not. But it's the widely circulated paper in the black community because it's of interest to people, certainly as that might be.
If you were editor of any program, if you are in charge of media and society, would you have okayed an interview with Duduzane Zuma, and what would be your reasoning?
Look, I think we must first understand that Duduzane, media has done an injustice when it comes to people like Duduzane Zuma. Yes, he might be the son of the former president, but it's the media itself that has put a spotlight on him when his father was the president, you know. Duduzane in his own right is a business person. In his own right, he's a managing director of companies. In his self right, has got the right to be on any news platform because he's a South African. But the problem is that we are going to focus on Duduzane, and nobody's going to speak about the children of Pravin Gordhan. Nobody's going to speak about the children of Johan Rupert. But we have to focus on children of black leaders and put a spotlight on them. So if I was a news anchor or a news editor, I would grant him an interview because his voice must be heard. The same way the views of Johan Rupert's children must be heard. The same way the children of Pravin Gordhan must be heard. Because we've put a spotlight on them as media, unfortunately. So therefore, who must now be of newsworthy and who must not be newsworthy in this country?
Themba Seputukele is joining us on the line. We couldn't get him on Zoom. He's a journalist. He's actually just publishing a book shortly, I know, Themba, and he's also founder of TS Media and a media trainer himself. Themba, is Duduzane Zuma newsworthy?
Good morning, my brother.
And
Good morning to the panelists.
What is the concept of newsworthiness, by the way? What does it mean?
You know, it is not quite a cut and dry kind of a concept, what is newsworthy, or because you have to look at what is in the public interest, not versus what is the public interest. Because we look at news in terms of news values as to basically also the issue of power and proximity comes into play. Hence, Duduzane Zuma finds himself in the center of being a kind of a media celebrity, to say, whether he is the son of a president or whether he's a business person, but there is also that element of celebrity in him. Hence, wherever he goes, he'll be, followed by a lot of people, want to take pictures with him, and his plans to enter into the political arena also propels him so much so that he becomes a sort of a celebrity politician. Whether he's the son of the president or not, whether he deserves to be in the newspapers or not, but that's how he managed to basically craft his profile, and that's how, and being the so-called businessman, being aligned with the Guptas, at the end of the day, the media will shine the spotlight on him. He's the son of the president. He seemed to be powerful in the past. He was involved in an accident with a Porsche Cayenne. So ultimately, he'll be there. But as to whether he's getting too much media publicity, it's something that the media should sit and reflect. As to say, it doesn't mean that when Duduzane goes and hand over food parcels, that on its own becomes newsworthy. Because the important thing is about the recipients of those food parcels, not him giving people a food parcel. That basically is just not a story, but a publicity stunt. So,
aren't we, Themba, sorry to interrupt you, aren't we though risking becoming censors, becoming gatekeepers? Because who's going to be then seen as handing out parcels? Is it only gift of the givers? When it's to Duduzane Zuma, we see it as making publicity for himself.
Gift of the givers is an organization. It is not a person. So we are saying, and this is an advice that we also say, if you're going to give, Rems, you're going to give to the poor, why should it be you who shine the spotlight, but instead of the intended recipients, not you as the giver? So whether you are a mayor, a minister, you're going to give shoes, it is not about you, but about the recipients. Therefore, then even that kind of a story where Duduzane is giving people food parcels, it doesn't have to be about him. But hence I'm saying also, we have to guard against, just giving him unnecessary publicity where if he passes by, that becomes a story. He's not Brenda Fassie. He's not even Shaka Chaka. He's not a celebrity.
But maybe he is. Maybe he's become a political celebrity. Maybe he is a political Brenda Fassie.
Yes, but now, is that how now we have to run and turn everything into being a celebrity, and in terms of not being newsworthiness? And unfortunately, whereby we'll end up doing things because someone says it's a celebrity, then it is no longer politics. Yes, he is a politician, but it cannot be that wherever he moves. I mean, look at how he embarrassed one of our colleagues in the media. He goes to his father's house in Ghana. A journalist asked him, "What are you doing here?" And his answer was simple: "It is my house. So why was cameras were also just hooked on him when he went to his parents' house?" Hence, sometimes we give, we just create unnecessary news with what is not news because of a person or personality.
Let me get Mudibe in here. Let me get Mudibe in, because I like the point that you introducing. Mudibe, is it that not the point that because there is not enough news, sometimes you have to drag in a celebrity and fill up the pages or fill up the column centimeters or the airtime, but also having to understand that the media compete. If I did not cover Tutuzane, what is the risk that my competitor is going to cover him and I'll lose out on followers?
Look, I think now, as you can see, as we've done with the Inside Factor, we've given platforms to people we've given an opportunity for people who would not necessarily be invited for interviews by mainstream media. We would not be necessarily be given an opportunity to have their side of the story being heard. And you see there's a market for that, and hence why platforms such as ourselves are growing. So mainstream media finds themselves in a very difficult situation now because they themselves have contributed to the mess that they now want to complain about. It is the same mainstream media which has for many years followed Duduzane around, but has never followed the children of FW de Klerk around. So now the same mainstream media wants to complain about why Duduzane is being given attention, why they themselves were the ones who have been given him an opportunity and who have been profiling him all these years. But I think also when it comes to newsworthy, South Africa has found itself in a very racial way of news analysis. In order to be newsworthy and be called an expert and to be called in for interviews and provide analysis on constitutional issues, for example, one has to be white. You find instances where a person who's never seen a courtroom is called a constitutional law expert, like Pierre de Vos. Pierre de Vos is considered a constitutional court expert by media. This is the same person who did not even know that a constitutional court judgment can be rescinded. He dared to take people on Twitter to remind him. This is the same person which media continuously shoves on our throats to provide news analysis. But the same person does not even understand basic constitutional law issues. The same person now is teaching students at the University of Cape Town. But what is he teaching students if he himself does not know that a constitutional court judgment can be rescinded? Now, this is where the irresponsibility of media is coming, because they've given platforms to these white experts because of the color of their skin. There are black legal experts in this country, like Advocate Ngalwana SC, who are never given platforms. There are people like Paul Ngubeni, who are never given a platform because their views do not subscribe to the mainstream media narrative and those of the establishment.
I am so grateful, Modibe, that all of my 4 guests this morning have been black people. Just a pity that it's been black, 4 black men. I wish I had heard women, and we should work on that. The production team is hearing me. We should improve on that. Gentlemen, I have to cut it short, unfortunately, so thank you very much, Modibe. And Themba Seputukela, on your insights. I can tell you they've been very insightful. When we come back, my favorite part of the show, Video of the Week. Actually, I'm told we're going straight to Video of the Week. And for this week's Video of the Week, we take a look at a clip of a rain. This is amazing, guys. This is a clip of Raining Miss SA, Shurifazo Musida, the graduation ceremony that set tongues wagging on social media and mainstream media. Let's look at the video of this week. Well, apologies for no audio on that video, but that's our reigning Miss SA. She was graduating. Now, you know why that got you angry. It got you angry because thousands of people got via courier service their certificates because they qualified, and Miss SA gets to qualify, rather to graduate, not virtually, but in front of those that have to graduate. And here are some of the comments of your angry selves. Pudi Khabo Sekhapanis Tlakule says, VETS continues to divide the youth and the rest of education systems or system. Animals are equal, but Miss SA is extra equal. Doom says this was not a good idea. Sydney Libya says, congratulations to the Queen for her achievement and best move by VETS to honor her. Haters will continue to hate. However, they won't take away that she's former Miss SA. And Lindy says, I see no problem. She is Miss SA. She's treated like one. People always complain. Kasi pedi bari inabashwana mushate. And I'm learning all these languages. So just because she's famous, she gets to graduate. That's raise. He continues, whereby the rest of us never ever got our name read out. That's raise. And finally, I think Kumi says, walk your journey with pride, beautiful. In times like this, we surely need this motivation. Pandemic is not a deterrent to achieve your qualification. Congratulations and good luck on your dream. Here's my comment. We need heroes in bad times. And there are celebrities, and then there are people like Rems who must just get it by courier. It's the way of the world. We take a break and we come back with our game changer. Channel N is a YouTube channel which was started by Sandile Ngobe in 2013 and later grew with the inclusion of Maxwell Zamini and Nati Valentine Manana. The channel produces web series and comedy skits like Rolling with Mateo, Boza, Jolanami, and many more. I'm now joined by Nati. I'm told the guys are creating content, so they're not joining me. But we're gonna play their package and hopefully we can get to interview them, because unfortunately after this package, I won't have time to interview them. We're battling to get hold of them, but look at the work that is done by this amazing group of young people.
Angithandi involendwa ke mafense Pirates. Yeah, ngikhumbula ke mina nakayodlala ifinal lapha CAF. Sayisupporta ke thina Pirates. Yes, mafense Kaizer Chiefs. Saphinda futhi sayisupporta iSundowns iyodlala nayo ifinal. Saphinda ke sababongisa ngoba kwethini simakhosi lamahle, love and peace, sithule noqolo. Siyawabongisa ke emabhakani kahle, siyabonga bomnethu empiyeni star. Awuna kusokuyodlala sini. Kwafiswa timpepho ke kwakhulunywa nabogogo wabo, kwakhulunywa ke netipoko mathambo lePirates letafakuzala.
Hello, Nyalo uyangiva?
Ya nakuva.
Uyangiva Nyalo?
Nakuva manje. Khuluma ndoda.
Ngabe nguye Mr. Simelane lengikhuluma naye.
Yo, yiyo le imobhoza imongwenya. Waniyazi manje.
Hawu Mr. Simelane, congratulations usenhlanhleni. Ngithi baka Mobi Sauce uwine 100 million rand.
Malini?
100 million rand.
Yo motoda. Avukile maguta, avukile mangwenya. Hayi man. Uthi ni wena kuphi Mobi Sauce? Yini yona Mobi Sauce? Andikhumbule nidlala Mobi Sauce.
Ngaba besimelani inombolo yakho ngiyo lekhethiwe la ka Mobi Sauce. So invole khona Nyalo sitakusendela imessage inema banking details usendele 3,500 rand utaba soyamthola lo 100 million. Kanti lo 3,500 rand wokuthi uactivate le mali yakho kuze iphume.
Wa kunankingi phela. Angithi mina manje imamiliyoni. Niwine imamiliyoni. Thatha ima 3.5 leyo kuma 100 imamiliyoni leyo. Unisendele le 900 emasala emamiliyoni.
Kodwa nyawo lwehonji. Akahlaliseki. Wasenambe nohlola phe sangweni man.
Andile maye ngakutshela mshaya.
Wona wathi
ngathi angiboni impawu ebufathi mina kuleyo.
And that's Channel N. Please check them out on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching Media and Society, and we hope you join us again, same time, same place. From me, Rams Mabote, goodbye and God bless.